What happens when a royal guest thinks they can walk into the Loose Women studio and demand special treatment while insulting the very people who invited them on? It only took 29 seconds for Meghan Markle to destroy any goodwill she had left with British television audiences after making one comment so outrageous that veteran presenter Denise Welch had no choice but to show her the door. This is the story of how entitlement met reality on live television and why sometimes the only response to bad behavior is to cut it short before it gets worse. The Loose Women studio buzzed with its usual energy that Tuesday afternoon. The panel sat ready, with Denise Welch anchoring from her familiar spot, flanked by Kay Adams, Nadia Sawalha, and Jane Moore. The producers had promised a special guest, someone who would bring ratings and headlines. What they got was a masterclass in how not to behave on television. Meghan Markle swept into the studio 20 minutes late, her assistant trailing behind with demands about lighting angles and which questions were off limits. The production team scrambled to accommodate, but Denise watched from the panel desk with growing irritation. "We're live in 60 seconds, called the floor manager. Meghan finally took her seat, barely acknowledging the panel members with a curt nod. No apologies for the delay. No thank you for the opportunity. Just an expectant look that suggested the show should feel grateful for her presence. And we're live in 5, 4, 3. The floor manager counted down silently. The red light flashed on. Denise Welch's professional smile appeared instantly. Decades of television experience kicking in. "Welcome back to Loose Women. I'm Denise Welch, and with me today are Kay, Nadia, and Jane. We're joined by a very special guest, Meghan Markle, who's here to talk about her latest projects and life in California." The audience applauded politely. Meghan's smile looked practiced, almost painted on. "Thank you for having me," Meghan said, though her tone suggested she considered it more of a favor to them than a privilege for her. Denise jumped straight in. "So Meghan, tell us about settling into life in America. Has it been everything you hoped for?" "Well, Denise, I have to say it's been liberating. Finally being able to speak my truth without the constraints of an institution that never really understood who I was or what I could bring to the table." Kay Adams leaned forward. "That must have been a difficult decision to make, leaving everything behind." Meghan's expression shifted slightly, a hint of irritation creeping in. "I wouldn't say I left everything behind. I left behind negativity. I left behind people who couldn't see past their own prejudices." The studio temperature seemed to drop a degree. Nadia Sawalha exchanged a quick glance with Jane Moore. "But surely there were positive aspects to your time in the UK, Jane offered diplomatically. "The charitable work, meeting people from all walks of life." "Jane, I think that's rather naive," Meghan replied, her voice taking on a condescending edge. "When you're dealing with an institution that's built on outdated traditions and frankly racist undertones, the charitable work becomes performative. I was being used as a token, a way for them to appear modern while keeping the same old power structures in place." Denise felt her professional composure being tested. "That's quite a serious accusation, Meghan. The royal family has been working to modernize for decades." "Has it, though?" Meghan shot back. "Because from where I sat, it felt more like they were trying to put me in a box, make me smaller, less threatening to their established order. They couldn't handle a strong, independent woman who knew her worth." The panel members were now visibly uncomfortable. Kay attempted to steer the conversation to safer ground. "Let's talk about your podcast work. That must be fulfilling, having complete creative control." "Finally, yes. Though I have to say, the British media's response has been typically small-minded. They can't stand that I found success on my own terms, that I don't need their approval or their platforms anymore." Nadia couldn't help herself. "But you are on a British platform right now, speaking to a British audience." Meghan's laugh was sharp, almost mocking. "True, but I'm doing you the favor, aren't I? Let's be honest. Your ratings probably tripled the moment my name was announced for this show." The studio fell silent. Even the camera operators seemed stunned by the casual arrogance of the statement. Denise felt something snap inside her. Decades of professionalism warred with genuine outrage. "I'm sorry, did you just say you're doing us a favor?" "Well, yes. I mean, when was the last time Loose Women had someone of my profile on? Someone with actual international recognition? I could have chosen any show, any platform, but I came here because I thought you deserved the opportunity." Jane Moore's mouth fell open slightly. Kay Adams looked like she was watching a car crash in slow motion. Denise leaned forward, her voice deadly calm. "Meghan, I think you might be confused about how this works. We invited you here as a courtesy, to give you a platform to share your story. We didn't beg you to come on. Didn't you, though?" Meghan's smile was cruel now. Your producers called mine multiple times. They were quite eager. Almost desperate, you could say. The audience began to shift uncomfortably. This wasn't the warm, inspiring interview they'd expected. Nadia tried one more time to salvage the situation. Perhaps we could focus on the positive aspects of your new life. Your family, your projects that you're passionate about. You know what I'm passionate about, Nadia? Authenticity. Something that seems to be in short supply in British media. Everyone here is so obsessed with maintaining this facade of politeness while saying absolutely vicious things behind closed doors. That's quite a generalization, Kay said quietly. Is it? Look at this panel. Look at this show. 4 middle-aged women sitting around gossiping about celebrities and current events, pretending they're providing some kind of valuable commentary. It's rather sad, isn't it? The words hung in the air like poison. Jane Moore's face went white. Kay Adams looked genuinely hurt. Nadia Sawalha's eyes flashed with anger. But it was Denise who found her voice first. Right. I think that's quite enough. Her tone was ice cold, cutting through Meghan's smugness like a blade. You came onto our show, 20 minutes late I might add, with a list of demands and restrictions. You've spent the last 10 minutes insulting not just us, but our audience, our country, and our profession. And now you have the audacity to suggest that we're the problem? Meghan's confidence wavered for the first time. I was simply being honest about what I've observed. No, you were being rude. There's a difference, though I suspect you've forgotten that somewhere along the way. The studio was electric with tension. The other panel members watched in fascination as their usually diplomatic colleague unleashed years of pent-up frustration with entitled guests. I've been in this business for 30 years, Denise continued, her voice rising slightly. I've interviewed politicians, celebrities, royalty, and ordinary people with extraordinary stories. Not once, not ever, has anyone sat in that chair and been so brazenly disrespectful to me, my colleagues, and the people who watch this show. Meghan tried to interrupt. Now, wait just a minute. No, you wait. You think because you married into royalty, because you have a podcast and a Netflix deal, that makes you better than us? That gives you the right to come in here and treat us like we should be grateful for the scraps of your attention? The camera captured every micro-expression on Meghan's face as the reality of the situation began to sink in. This wasn't going according to her script. I never said I was better than anyone, she protested weakly. You didn't have to say it. It's dripping from every word, every gesture, every condescending smile. You think we're beneath you, that this show is beneath you, that this entire country is beneath you. Jane Moore found her voice, quiet but firm. We opened our doors to you in good faith, Meghan. We wanted to hear your story, to give you a fair platform. This is how you repay that kindness? Kay Adams nodded. We've had difficult guests before, people going through hard times, people with controversial opinions, but they've always shown basic respect for the process, for us as individuals. Nadia leaned back in her chair, studying Meghan with newfound clarity. You know what's really sad? You could have used this opportunity to build bridges, to share something meaningful with our audience. Instead, you chose to burn everything down. Meghan looked around the panel, suddenly realizing she was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The 4 women she'd dismissed as irrelevant middle-aged gossips had just delivered a masterclass in professional dignity. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Meghan said, her voice losing some of its earlier confidence. I was simply trying to have an honest conversation about my experiences. Denise wasn't having it. Honest? You call sitting in our studio and telling us our show is sad and irrelevant honest? You call suggesting we begged you to appear here honest? The audience was completely silent now, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Even the camera operators had stopped their usual movements, transfixed by the unfolding drama. Look, I appreciate that you might have taken my comments the wrong way, Meghan tried again, attempting to regain control. But I think if you really examine what I was saying, you'll see I was making valid points about the media landscape in this country. Valid points? Jane Moore's voice was sharp now, her usual measured tone replaced by genuine anger. You didn't make points, Meghan. You made attacks. Personal attacks on women who welcomed you with open arms. Kay Adams shook her head slowly. You know what hurts the most? We genuinely wanted to hear your story. We prepared thoughtful questions. We cleared our schedule, rearranged our format, all because we thought you had something meaningful to share. I do have meaningful things to share, Meghan snapped, her mask finally slipping completely. But apparently this audience isn't sophisticated enough to understand nuance. Everything has to be spelled out in simple terms for British television viewers. The collective intake of breath from the studio audience was audible. Several people in the front row looked genuinely shocked. Nadia Sawalha stood up abruptly from her chair. That's it. That's absolutely it. You just insulted every single person in this studio, and by extension, everyone watching at home. Sit down, Nadia, Meghan said dismissively. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? Nadia's voice rose. You just called our viewers unsophisticated. You insulted their intelligence. These are people who've supported this show for years. People who tune in every day because they trust us to treat them with respect. Denise felt her blood pressure rising. Meghan, I've been patient. I've tried to give you the benefit of the doubt, but you've just crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. What line? The line of honesty? The line of speaking truth to power? The line of basic human decency? Denise exploded. You don't get to come into our house and insult our family, and that's what our audience is to us, family. Meghan rolled her eyes. Oh, please, spare me the fake sentiment. You're television presenters, not social workers. This is a business, and I'm here as a business arrangement. Kay's voice was quiet but deadly. Is that really how you see it? A business arrangement where you can treat people however you like, as long as it serves your purposes? I treat people the way they deserve to be treated. If you can't handle direct communication, maybe television isn't the right career for you. The studio erupted. The audience began murmuring among themselves, clearly upset by what they were witnessing. Several production assistants looked toward the control room, unsure whether they should intervene. Jane Moore leaned forward, her journalistic instincts kicking in. Let me ask you something, Meghan. Do you actually believe what you're saying, or is this some kind of performance? Because if this is really who you are, I feel sorry for the people in your life. Don't you dare psychoanalyze me. Meghan shot back. You don't know me. None of you know me. You've read tabloid stories and watched edited interviews, and you think you have some insight into who I am as a person. You're right, Denise said, her voice dangerously calm again. We don't know you, but we're getting to know you very well right now, and frankly, we don't like what we're seeing. The feeling is mutual, I assure you. The words hung in the air like a slap. Even Meghan seemed to realize she'd gone too far, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. Nadia sat back down, but her posture remained rigid with anger. You know what's really tragic about this? You had a platform. You had 4 experienced women who were ready to listen to your story with empathy and understanding. And you threw it all away because you couldn't resist being cruel. I'm not being cruel. I'm being real. Something this country seems to have a problem with. This country? Kay's voice was incredulous. You're going to attack an entire nation now? If the shoe fits, look at how you've reacted to a little bit of honest feedback. You can dish it out, but you can't take it. Denise had reached her breaking point. 25 years of television professionalism warred with her fundamental sense of right and wrong was winning. Honest feedback. Is that what you call this character assassination you've been performing for the last 15 minutes? I call it telling the truth about what I see. 4 women past their prime, clinging to relevance by gossiping about their betters. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the technical crew seemed to freeze. Jane Moore's face went white with shock. Kay Adams looked like she'd been physically struck. Nadia Sawalha's mouth fell open, but Denise Welch, veteran of 1,000 difficult interviews, found her voice first. Our betters? Her tone was deadly quiet. Did you just refer to yourself as our better? Meghan's confidence flickered for just a moment, but she doubled down. I'm simply stating facts. I've achieved things none of you have. I've lived at levels of society you could never access. I've influenced global conversations while you've been stuck in this little bubble talking to housewives about soap opera storylines. The audience began to stir restlessly. Someone in the back row called out, "That's enough!" But security quickly shushed them. Denise stood up slowly from her chair. Her movements were deliberate, controlled, but there was something in her posture that suggested a lioness preparing to strike. Let me tell you something about our audience, Meghan. Those housewives you're so dismissive of, they're nurses who work double shifts to keep the NHS running. They're teachers who spend their own money on supplies for their students. They're carers who look after elderly parents while raising their own children. They're small business owners who employ their neighbors and contribute to their communities. How lovely for them, Meghan said sarcastically. They don't need your approval, and they certainly don't need your respect, because they're worth 10 of you on your best day. The audience began to applaud, slowly at first, then building to a crescendo. Meghan looked around, clearly rattled by the response. And another thing, Denise continued, her voice rising above the applause. You talk about levels of society and global influence like they make you special. But you know what really makes someone special? Kindness, humility. The ability to treat people with basic human dignity, regardless of their station in life. "Spare me the sermon," Meghan muttered, but her bravado was cracking. "No, you're going to hear this. Because someone needs to tell you what everyone else is clearly too polite or too scared to say. You are not special because you married a prince. You are not special because you have money or fame or Netflix deals. You're just another person in this world. And if you can't treat other people with respect, then you deserve none in return." Jane Moore nodded firmly. "You came here with an opportunity to connect with millions of people, to share something positive, to maybe heal some bridges. Instead, you chose to tear everything down just to make yourself feel superior." Kay's voice was thick with emotion. "We've been doing this show for over 20 years. We've interviewed thousands of people. Prime ministers, celebrities, ordinary people with extraordinary stories. And not once, not ever, has anyone made me feel as small and worthless as you just tried to do." "Well, maybe that's because," Meghan started, but Nadia cut her off. "No, stop talking. Just stop. Every word that comes out of your mouth makes this worse. You've insulted our audience, our profession, our country, and our basic humanity. There's nothing you can say now that will fix this." The camera captured Meghan's face as the reality of her situation finally began to sink in. The 4 women she'd dismissed and demeaned were united against her. The audience was hostile, and she was rapidly running out of allies in the room. "I think," she said, attempting to regain some composure, "that this interview has run its course. Perhaps we should end it here before things get any more unpleasant." Denise's laugh was bitter. "Oh no, Meghan. You don't get to decide when this ends. You started this fire, and now you're going to sit in it until we're good and ready to put you out of your misery." Meghan's face went pale at Denise's words. For the first time since sitting down, she looked genuinely uncomfortable, shifting in her chair as the weight of her situation became clear. "You can't hold me hostage on your little show," she said, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. "Watch us," Denise replied coldly. "You wanted to have this conversation, to air your grievances about British television and British people. Well, congratulations. You've got our undivided attention." The studio audience was completely captivated now, sensing they were witnessing television history. The other panel members sat like judges, their faces stern and unforgiving. "This is ridiculous," Meghan tried again, looking toward the exit. "I have other commitments. My security team is waiting." "Your security team can keep waiting," Jane Moore said firmly, "because we're not finished with you yet." Kay leaned forward, her voice steady but filled with hurt. "Do you have any idea what you've done here today? Do you understand the damage you've caused?" "Damage?" Meghan's laugh was sharp and defensive. "What damage? I've simply spoken honestly about my experiences and observations." "You've revealed yourself," Nadia said quietly. "Completely and utterly. Everyone watching now knows exactly who you really are." "And who am I, Nadia? Please, enlighten me with your amateur psychology." "You're someone who's forgotten where you came from. You're someone who's let titles and wealth convince you that other people don't matter. You're someone who's lost touch with basic human decency." Meghan's eyes flashed with anger. "You don't know anything about where I came from, or what I've been through." "You're right," Denise interjected. "We don't know your personal struggles, but we know what we've seen here today. And what we've seen is someone who thinks suffering gives them permission to be cruel to others." "I haven't been cruel. I've been honest. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty, though I suspect you stopped caring about that distinction long ago." The silence stretched between them, heavy with tension. Meghan looked around the studio, perhaps hoping for an ally, a friendly face, someone who might rescue her from this nightmare. She found none. "You know what the really sad part is?" Jane said softly. "We wanted to like you. When your name was suggested for the show, we were genuinely excited. We thought this could be a chance for you to connect with British audiences again, to show a different side of yourself. Instead," Kay continued, "you've confirmed every negative story anyone has ever written about you. Every rumor about your behavior, every whisper about your attitude. You validated all of it in the space of 30 minutes. Meghan's composure was cracking visibly now. "Those stories were lies, media manipulation designed to destroy my reputation." "Were they?" Nadia asked pointedly. "Because what we've witnessed here today suggests they might have been more accurate than we realized. You're all ganging up on me because you can't handle the truth about yourselves and your industry." Denise shook her head slowly. "No, Meghan, we're responding to your behavior, your choices, your words. You came in here with an agenda to tear us down, and when we refused to be torn down, you escalated. This is all on you. I never had an agenda. I agreed to come on this show in good faith." "Good faith?" Jane's voice rose incredulously. You were 20 minutes late with no apology. You made demands about lighting and questions. You barely acknowledged us when you sat down. If that's your idea of good faith, I'd hate to see bad faith. Those are standard professional considerations. Any serious interview requires proper preparation. No, Kay said firmly. Those are the demands of someone who thinks they're more important than everyone else in the room. Meghan stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to sit here and listen to this character assassination. Sit down, Denise commanded, her voice cutting through the studio like a whip. Excuse me? You heard me. Sit down. You came on our show, you accepted our invitation, and you will conduct yourself with the basic respect that position requires. You can't order me around like I'm some subordinate. I can, and I will. This is my show, my studio, and while you're here, you'll follow my rules. The confrontation had reached its climax. Two strong-willed women facing off, with 20 years of television experience on one side and wounded pride on the other. Meghan remained standing, her hands clenched at her sides. I think it's time for me to leave. I think you're right, Denise said, standing to face her. But not on your terms. Not with you storming out like a petulant child who didn't get their way. How then? You apologize. To us, to our audience, to everyone you've insulted in the last half hour. You acknowledge that your behavior was unacceptable, and you leave with whatever dignity you have left. Meghan's face contorted with rage. Apologize? For what? For telling the truth? For refusing to play along with your little charade of relevance? For being cruel? For being condescending? For treating people like they're beneath you, when you're the one who should be grateful for the opportunity to be here? Grateful? I've made this show more interesting than it's been in years. Nadia laughed bitterly. Interesting? Is that what you call this train wreck? You think destroying relationships and burning bridges makes for good television? I think authenticity makes for good television. Something you've all clearly forgotten. This isn't authenticity, Jane said sadly. This is just ugliness dressed up as honesty. Kay looked directly into the camera, addressing the audience. I want to apologize to everyone watching at home. This isn't the show we intended to give you today. We invited a guest in good faith, hoping to have a meaningful conversation. And instead, you've had to witness this. Don't apologize for me, Meghan snapped. I'm not apologizing for you. I'm apologizing for subjecting our viewers to your behavior. The audience began to murmur again, clearly upset by what they were witnessing. Someone called out, "Just get rid of her." But security quickly moved to quiet them. Denise looked around the studio, taking in the faces of her colleagues, the uncomfortable production staff, the restless audience. She made her decision. Meghan, I've been in television for 30 years. I've dealt with difficult guests, hostile interviews, technical disasters, and every kind of crisis you can imagine. But I have never, ever encountered someone so determined to be unpleasant, so committed to making everyone around them miserable. If you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder than that. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm trying to protect everyone else from having to endure any more of this. Denise walked around the desk, closing the distance between them. Her voice was quiet, but carried clearly throughout the studio. You came here today with a choice. You could have been gracious. You could have been kind. You could have used this platform to build bridges, to connect with people, to show the best version of yourself. Instead, you chose to be small, petty, and cruel. You chose to tear down rather than build up. I chose to be honest about what I see. No, you chose to be mean. There's a difference, though I'm not sure you understand it anymore. Meghan's mask slipped one final time. You know what? You're right. I don't have to pretend to care about you or your little show or your pathetic audience. I'm done pretending any of this matters. The studio went dead silent. Even the technical crew stopped what they were doing, stunned by the naked contempt in her voice. Denise nodded slowly, as if Meghan had just confirmed everything she suspected. There at Island, the real you. Thank you for finally being honest. She turned to address the camera directly. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've all learned something important today. We've learned that sometimes, no matter how much opportunity someone is given, no matter how much good faith is extended to them, some people will choose to be ugly. And when that happens, the only appropriate response is to remove them from your life. She looked back at Meghan, her expression cold and final. Security will escort you out. Your appearance on Loose Women is over, and you will not be invited back. Meghan's face went white with shock. You can't ban me from your show. I just did. This is our studio, our show, our rules. And our rule is that people who can't treat others with basic respect don't get to stay. 2 security guards appeared at the edge of the set, professional but clearly ready to act if needed. This is outrageous, Meghan protested, but her voice was shaking now. You can't treat me like this." "Like what?" Jane asked pointedly. "Like someone whose behavior has consequences? Like someone who doesn't get special treatment just because of their title? I'll sue you for this. All of you." "Sue us for what?" Nadia laughed. "For holding you accountable for your own words and actions?" Kay shook her head sadly. "Even now, even facing the consequences of your choices, you can't take responsibility. You can't admit that maybe, just maybe, you were wrong." Denise made a gesture to the security guards, who began to move forward. "Goodbye, Meghan. I genuinely hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, but you won't find it by tearing other people down." As the security guards flanked her, Meghan made one last desperate attempt to regain control. "You'll regret this. All of you. I have more influence than you can imagine." "No," Denise said quietly. "You have less influence than you think. And after today, you'll have even less." The guards began to escort Meghan toward the exit, her protests echoing through the studio as she was led away. The other panel members watched in stunned silence as their guest disappeared from view. Denise returned to her seat, straightened her papers, and looked directly into the camera. "We'll be right back after this break," she said, her professional composure returning as if nothing had happened. But everyone in that studio knew they had just witnessed something unprecedented, something that would be talked about for years to come. The day that entitled behavior met its match and lost.